Okay, so going back to some data that was presented yesterday, if we look at the NAM study, National Animal Health Monitoring Study 2009 of beef cattle management practices, we can see that about 94% of cows and 79% of heifers at that time were exposed to bulls only. And then if we look at animals that received AI, approximately 4% of cows and 12% of heifers received AI, followed by exposure to bulls. So we're going to be talking about the bull in general, whether used for natural service or AI, because cattle producers everywhere, in New Mexico, throughout the U.S., throughout the world, are interested in identifying the most fertile bulls for use in their herds. So the title keeps me awake at night, predicting and promoting fertility in bulls. The idea of prediction lends itself to that scientists and veterinarians and AI centers understand all the attributes necessary for fertilization, for fertility. And we have a partial list of sperm attributes that we know of. But I'm going to tell you right now, we don't know all of the attributes. And that is a struggle for us to understand why some males are fertile, others are less fertile. Having said that, there's a shopping list shown here of acceptable morphology, metabolism for production of energy, progressive motility, capacity for hyperactive motility, ability to stabilize plasma and acrosome membrane lipids, just having acrosomal enzymes, and then of course chromatin integrity. Again, this is a partial list of what we believe are necessary for fertilization and for reasonable fertility. So, as an extension specialist, I work a lot with producers. I also write a lot of popular press articles. I read a lot of popular press magazines. I saw this in a popular press magazine a few years ago, and it says, double breed every cow. This kind of stuff drives me absolutely crazy. Crazy. And if we continue to read it, it says 35 million sperm cells per straw, double the amount of any major stud. I don't have any idea where this ad is going. Okay? And then it says our half cc straw has twice the fluid as quarter cc straws. I'm thinking, whoa, this is higher math. Okay? And then it says the real reason, this is like exposed or something. The real reason studs use quarter cc straws is to save big dollars on shipping. Are you kidding me? Okay, more is not necessarily better. Okay, I've got 2 kids. I'm constantly banging my head on this topic. More is not necessarily better. Okay? We've got to understand that. And that holds true when we're breeding cows. It holds true when we collect semen from bulls to freeze the semen so that we then can breed cows. So, let's not double breed every cow, and let's not fixate on more is better when we're talking about sperm numbers. So here's the first question for audience participation. I hope everyone's awake and has had their coffee. How many sperm are needed to maximize the chance at a pregnancy? Well, 1 is going to do the job, but we need to have more than 1 in the reproductive tract. How many? Somebody want to take a guess? Come on, somebody's going to guess. I know there are people here that have seen a portion of this talk before. It depends. It depends. Okay? And we're going to talk about that right here. There is no hard and fast. 20 million sperm cells per half mil dose is not magic. Okay? So we have a relationship of semen quality and quantity to fertility. And if I can work my pointer, there we go. We have fertility increasing on this axis, and we have increasing numbers of viable sperm on this axis. And we have 4 different bulls shown there. And then we have this optimum fertility level of the female population. And we can see that bulls A and B meet that level of the female population with fewer cells than bulls C and D, and bull A meets it sooner than bull B. Okay? So, why does this happen this way? It's because we have things within the ejaculate that are either compensable or uncompensable. Compensable seminal traits are viability or morphology traits impairing sperm transport and penetration of that egg. Okay? Fertilization doesn't occur. So, an example would be severely misshapen sperm in an otherwise normal semen sample. Severely misshapen sperm. So what does that mean? What's the take home from that? Reduced fertility in general can be overcome or minimized by increasing sperm numbers. Hence the name compensable traits, okay? On the other hand, there are uncompensable traits within an ejaculate, within a semen sample. And these signify incompetence of the fertilizing sperm, okay? Completion of fertilization and maintenance of the embryo doesn't occur. This is the scary one. Sperm get to the site of fertilization and they compete, but they're not able to maintain that embryo and maintain that pregnancy. We suspect damaged DNA in another otherwise normally shaped head of fertilizing sperm leads to this. We also suspect there are other morphologic problems that lead to uncompensable seminal traits. Here's the reality. This is why numbers are not magic. Reduced fertility regardless of sperm dosage. So if you're at 20 million and you go to 40 million, there is no magic cure if there are high numbers of uncompensable seminal traits within that semen sample. Okay, so let's go back to the original graph shown here. The axes are exactly the same. What's going on here? What's going on here is both C and D, no matter how many sperm cells we put in those straws, will not meet the fertility level of the female population. So these are bulls that are routinely removed and not used. Okay? And they should be removed and not used. The last thing I want to hear from anyone is we increased the number of, we just doubled the dose. Okay? It doesn't work that way. Okay, so those two bulls, C and D, are classic examples of uncompensable traits. Okay, so moving on to a real-world situation, we did a collaborative study. My graduate student, Saulo Menegatti-Zoka from Brazil. We did a collaborative study with Select Sires of Brazil, São Paulo State University. And this was a sperm dose titration study. The idea here is to use Angus sires on Nelore-based cattle. And we had 11 collaborating ranches in Brazil. The objective, to determine the effect of sperm dose. 10 million, 20 million, and I didn't make a mistake. We had two 20 million doses, and I'll tell you why in a second. And 40 million on pregnancy per fixed time AI in Brazilian beef cattle. The idea behind two 20 million doses is to understand random variation that occurs in a reproductive trial. Okay, and we're going to talk more about that. So materials and methods for this study, we had 5 Angus bulls that were housed at Select Sires in Ohio. They were collected, standard procedures. They were frozen in proprietary milk-based extender used at Select Sires. We had 4 doses, again, 10 million, 2 20 million doses, and a 40 million dose. And then we had half-mil straws, and there were 4 different color straws. So AI technicians and ranchers did not know, other than the bull, they did not know the dose within straw. Okay? And the reason we have 2 20 million straws is, again, to understand random variation that occurs in a reproductive field trial because the only thing that was different was straw color. Straw color, 20 million does is exactly the same. Okay, so we had a grid as to how these samples, ejaculates were put up, so that way we could then keep track of which bull and which dose, etc. Okay, so let's jump to the results. We saw no effect of sperm dose on pregnancy for time day I. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. No effect of sperm dose on pregnancy for time day I. We had titrated to 10 million, 20 million, and 40 million. Okay? So you can look right there. You can see sperm dose. You can see the two 20 millions there. You can see the number of inseminations, and you can see the range of pregnancy for time day I was very close. Okay? There's no significant difference between any of those. Okay? What about between bulls? We actually did see a fertility difference between bulls. This was detected, and you can look by bull A, B, C, D, and E. You can see the numbers of inseminations here, and you can see bulls A and B obviously did very well. Bull C was on the lower end, but still acceptable, and then bull D and E were intermediate. Okay. I have to preface this with all bulls passed the exact same pre-freeze and post-thaw quality control. Okay. They passed every routine analysis that occurs for semen to be processed and distributed. So let's go to the range and fertility of those 220 million straws. So remember, the only thing that's different is straw color. That's the only thing that's different. Okay? So within two bulls, we saw a very wide range. So bull D and bull E, 20 million A and 20 million B. Within bull E, actually, we saw very little difference. But within bull D, for some reason, we saw up to a 5 percentage point difference. So the point here is that many times we fixate on the results of, and I'll use dairy for an example, the results of double ovsync in first lactation dairy animals should be 56% at first service. And people fixate on that. And that's dangerous, because there are many, many different factors that play a role. And there's always a range around that number that we describe. And that's really kind of the take-home message from this, is that we're describing these numbers, but even within a controlled study, you can have some variation. Same technicians, same lot of animals, same nutrition, et cetera, shown here. So, we brought this data back, and we have this data now in Idaho, and we're looking at the data, running SAS, and working with select sires. We say, well, let's go and let's run computer-assisted sperm analysis and flow cytometry and see if we can understand why bulls A and B were high and why bull C, perhaps, was a little bit lower, and why bulls D and E were intermediate. So kind of a reverse prediction. Could we do that? So Sala went off and worked with Dr. Utt and Dr. Harstein at Select Sires for 8 or 9 days and ran numerous CASA tests and ran samples through flow cytometry. Okay? So what happened there? The third and fourth bullet points is the summary of that. We saw CASA and flow cytometry characteristics were different between bulls. That's to be expected. But we were not able to explain the difference in field fertility between bulls. It was kind of a mashup. So we were unable to describe exactly why, given the tests that we ran at Select with CASA and flow cytometry, why bull A was the highest, why bull B was next, and why bull C was on the bottom. So it gets to the point of asking these questions, which questions aren't we asking relative to fertility? I don't have that answer. That's why prediction is so very hard. So as a summary, sperm dose per straw didn't affect field fertility. So there was truly no need to go from 10 to 20 to 40. There's no benefit. Fertility was acceptable across that level. So we had met any compensatory need within these bulls by about 10 million cells. That's what it comes down to. Now, all bulls in all AI centers will not act this way. I get that. That's not my point. But the point here in a condensed period of time is we really have to look at this critically and understand that more is not always better. Okay? And then a difference in bull fertility was detected, and as we tried to go back using CASA and flow cytometry, we could not explain the field fertility differences between bulls. Okay, so that's kind of the prediction portion. I'm moving on to promotion portion, and I have a picture of a bull here and a breeding soundness evaluation up there. Before anyone kind of rolls their eyes and things like this, we can go back to NOMS, 2009. And NOMS in 2009 described the survey, people who answered the survey, 27% semen tested bulls. 27%. Okay? So this is why I brought this up relative to promoting fertility in bulls. So here's a question. This is audience participation here. Okay? Should we semen test bulls, or should we have a complete BSE performed? And we can go by raising hands if you want to. Or we can just go on to the second one and we can describe what's the difference. Is there a difference? How many people think there's a difference? Let's do it this way. Is there a difference between a semen test and a BSE, complete BSE? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, everybody should be reaching for that ceiling. There is a difference. I'm well aware of what services are offered. I am not describing anyone as doing a poor job. That's not what I'm describing. What I'm describing is a semen test is not a breeding soundness evaluation. That's what I'm describing. Okay? So there is a difference. And then when should a BSE be done? Should we do a BSE once when the bull is 15 months of age and then never do one again? Should we do one 2 days before the bull goes into breed heifers, breed cows? What is kind of the linchpin there on how soon or how late we do BSEs? What's that related to? 60 days because of the spermatogenic cycle. You got to clear those cobwebs. I know you know this. Okay, the spermatogenic cycle takes 60 days. So if you are examining, if you're doing a BSE prior to breeding season, you don't want to schedule it 21 days before breeding season. Because that doesn't allow a bull that doesn't pass a recheck before breeding season. Because you want to go through a complete spermatogenic cycle of 60 days. Okay? Yeah, but I couldn't get it scheduled. I'm going to do it in 45 days. I can't change the physiology. There's no veterinarian that can change the physiology. So this is something you gotta put on the calendar. And your veterinarians know this, and they will help you with this. Be glad to do that. Okay, so what's included? What's included? There's a lot of variations, but if we're talking about the Society for Therogenology, which has described complete breeding soundness evaluations, it's everything you see here. It's a physical exam. Eyes, feet, and legs. Okay? Testis, epididymides, penis, prepuce, seminal vesicles, prostate, ampulla. So, palpation of internal sexual organs. Okay? Scrotal circumference, of course. Association of the paired testis with sperm production. We understand that. The larger the circumference, in general, the larger the mass, Therefore, you get more sperm produced per gram of testis. Okay, that's why scrotal circumference is so important. And then semen collection and evaluation. Okay, and of course looking at not only motility, but looking at morphology. Okay, all of these are very, very important. So, as this is done by the veterinarian, there will be an ultimate classification at the end of the breeding soundness evaluation to promote, hopefully, fertility in your herd. The one that we would like to see is a satisfactory potential breeder. That means that the bull has met minimum criteria for scrotal circumference, sperm motility, and morphology, and is free of physical problems. Recognizing that it's a snapshot at this time, right now. Okay? And you can see the wording the way it is. It's a satisfactory potential breeder. There are no guarantees. That's very important, because many things can happen before that bull gets to the breeding season. Okay? On the other hand, we can have bulls be unsatisfactory potential breeders for whatever reason. They don't meet minimum criteria, or a bull could be deferred. Okay, and that's where I'm getting into this timing issue of when am I testing, when do I want to use these bulls. Okay? In a deferred classification, it's entirely possible that that bull may improve in time. So the suggestion is to retest within about 60 days. Okay? So there's the spermatogenic cycle. It's about 60 days. That you really have to keep in mind relative to a retest on a breeding soundness evaluation. So why am I harping on breeding soundness evaluations as opposed to a semen test? Okay, because we're fixating in a semen test on the ejaculate, and yes, we have good motility and good morphology potentially. But here's the reason why. In 2018, this is the first bullet point. In 2018, a veterinarian from Michigan State summarized 10 years of BSEs. And they found that over that 10-year period, 82% were satisfactory. Okay? 15% were deferred, and 3% were unsatisfactory. Okay, that's pretty good over a 10-year period. Okay, but they're using Society for Therogenology standards. They are not deviating. Every bull is treated the same. Okay? If we go back to Carson and Wenzel, who published data in the 1990s, they evaluated 1,200 bulls, both beef and dairy. They found 37% unsatisfactory in 1,200 bulls. Okay, that's huge. As a percentage, 37% is huge. Okay? If we go down to the last bullet point, Mike Overton did 200 BSEs in Central Valley of California on Holstein bulls at 12 to 15 months of age. And they're plenty big. 36% were unsatisfactory. 57% failed because of the physical exam alone. Okay? And I really learned a lot from Mike about BSEs, because Mike has a technique where he's watching the bulls as they come into the chute. He's watching the bulls as they leave the chute. It's not just focused on, I've got to do A, B, C, D, and E. Okay? 57% failed because of physical exam alone. Blind in an eye, no teeth, whatever. Okay? This is a huge problem. So let's get down to dollars and cents. Okay? The reality is, it's going to cost money to do BSEs. Everyone knows that. Okay? It's going to cost money, but this is an investment. Okay? Two different researchers, two different portions of the world. Dr. Chenoweth, who's in Australia now, but used to be at K-State, and then Menegasi from, I believe they're from Brazil, looked at the benefit to cost ratio, 20 to 1. 20 to 1. $20 benefit for each $1 invested in a BSE. Huge. Boy, I'd like to get 20 to 1 odds on a lot of things. That's incredible. Okay, So Society for Therogenology has updated the forms that they're using. There is a very user-friendly computer form which is available. I apologize, the resolution's not very good, but essentially you have physical exam results here. You can place different sperm abnormalities here. You describe the ejaculate here, and then the classification goes here. And you have color with it also. So green means go, red means stop, etc. It's very easy to understand, and it's standardized. And this then also allows for, you don't have to, but it allows for the transmission of data to a larger database, which is really important. It's really important to contribute what you're doing on your business or your veterinary practice with others to see, are we in the same boat? What trends are we seeing? Very nice system, very nice system. Okay, we're rounding the corner and heading for home here. Take-home messages. All sperm attributes necessary for fertilization, embryonic development, they're not known. And again, getting to that point of prediction. We haven't reached the ability to predict fertility yet. Okay, we have not gotten there yet. There are numerous complexities to the male and to the ejaculate. To reduce the risk of uncompensable traits, what we'd like to do is reduce that risk. If we're in an AI situation, you use semen from AI studs where morphology is a routine part of the evaluation. Okay, very important. Okay. You also spread your risk out. You use multiple proven high fertility bulls. Okay, I'm not the first one to preach that. Okay. On the other hand, if we're using natural service, screen all natural service bulls with a complete breeding soundness evaluation, including sperm morphology. Okay. Use the complete breeding soundness evaluation to get the best picture that we have at the time. To help your business, to promote fertility. So there is a disclaimer that I have to have here because there are many different things I didn't go over because of the time period, okay? I could talk for days on this, but I won't. So please read the proceedings paper for more information. I just kind of skimmed the top of it. And topics that are important, they're very important, and I recognize that, but I didn't even touch on, okay? Dr. Hutt from Select Sires did a very nice job on fertility prediction versus estimation. And this is really an important point. We don't predict fertility as much as we estimate fertility, okay? Dr. Barth from Canada has a volume of data on bull nutrition and development, okay? Very important. And then Dr. Chenoweth gets into social dominance and has done a very nice job not only on bull to cow ratio, social dominance, BSEs, things like this. So that's the disclaimer. I don't have time to talk perhaps about things that maybe you were a little more interested in. But these are overarching areas that I felt would be important for the majority of the audience. Okay, so at the end of the presentation, I've got to show a picture of my family here. And I'm kind of partial to veterinarians because I'm married to a veterinarian. So my wife's a veterinarian in Boise, Idaho. And then over here I've got a picture of Dr. Sacchi. Many of you will recognize Dr. Sacchi was my graduate advisor at Virginia Tech. And he's spoken many, many times at ARSBC at a variety of venues. And you can see, you'll recognize a wide variety in this rogues gallery from Cliff Marshall, Mel DeJarnett, Norm Bensel, Ray Meeble, and myself. And there's two things in common. We have very little hair, and if we have hair, it's gray. But the picture, the reason I have this picture here is because it was an honor to go back to Blacksburg a few years ago when Dr. Sacchi was inducted into the Virginia Ag Hall of Fame for his efforts to help both beef and dairy producers. So I just want to leave you with that. We don't have time for questions now, but I'm going to be here all day. So if you have questions, I'm happy to interact with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dalton. That was a tremendous